Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd One Out with your host Mark. I'm continuing our series of adventures. We're covering season 1 of Star Trek, the original series. So in this one, this is our third part. This is, my third part. This is episode 21 to episode 29. There were 9 concluding this season, so we're going to get into that. First one on my list, episode 21, Return of the Archon. I'm not sure if it's Archons or Archons. I think it's Archons. Now, in this one, they're reusing the battle lot again. Got deserted streets. Much of the same thing they did with Miri. And the wardrobe is Western, American Western. However, it turns out it's what is now an old sci-fi chestnut of a computer run the society, but not understanding enough to understand that creativity is as important as anything, and causing that society to stagnate. This one's alright. I like the fact that Spock, the most logical of people, acknowledged that creativity was the real seed of progress, and without creativity you stagnate. But I wish there'd been something in there where Spock would sort of cover how the creative act, which is essentially illogical, reconciled with his own society, which is more purely logic based. It's a bit baggy, and it could have been possibly a tract or an allegory about religious or political dogmatism and cultism, but I don't think it was intended to be that, but it could be seen that way. It was reasonable. Didn't mind this one at all. Right. Episode 22 was Space Seed. The only single episode of a TV show that I'm aware of that actually is the prequel to a movie, or rather an episode from a TV show who has a sequel that's a film movie. And the movie is the best Star Trek movie. It features Khan, a solid episode. We've did a commentary of this actually a while back, a couple of years back, on our main podcast, so you can dig that out. It was reasonable. But I just like the whole Kirk-Khan dynamic. Montalban's just really brilliant and magnificent as Khan. Really nicely written. Has solid themes, I think. But it also talks about... it's a bit like Conscience of the King. Now, that was harking back to almost Nazi war atrocities. It was kind of an allegory of that. And this is a similar one, but rather talking about not eugenics in world history, rather than the straightforward massacre that was in Conscience of the King. This is a classic, easily a classic. So we're doing quite well here. Number 23. Just digging out my notes. Number 23 was Taste of Armageddon. This was an odd one. Another old sci-fi chest, that of basically war conducted by computers, so no actual physical bombing, shooting. The computers decide who's going to live or die, and then they get destroyed. Probably a chestnut now, but this was pretty fresh in my opinion. It felt a pretty fresh episode. There was one thing I noticed that was really odd, in that the guards, they wore these kind of sashes and these funny hats that really, really looked like Thunderbirds. And Thunderbirds came out 2 years before this. It's ridiculous how close they are. I wonder that Jerry Anderson didn't sue. However, Thunderbirds was a UK show, so it's possible it never even got to America, so it could be just pure coincidence. The setup to this was really good. Some of the writing was absolutely superb, especially when it was around the character of Spock. A really good one. I wouldn't call it. No, actually, I think this is a classic. Yeah, so another classic. It gets a bit boring, I guess. There's a great line in it from Spock, which is, "Sir, there's a multi-legged creature crawling on your shoulder," to distract the guard. And there's also a great line from Scotty, which is, "Diplomats." He's cursing the diplomat. "The best diplomat I know is a fully activated phaser bank." I like that. And also he comes up with the phrase, "The haggis is in the fire," for sure. I like it. It was rather fun. Right, that gives us to episode 24. And that one is This Side of Paradise. This is one... Joe Island starred in this one. And this is a not quite as good as the ones I've just mentioned, but it's a pretty damn good episode. It's a killer episode, really. It's basically, we see Spock fall in love, have emotions, look at clouds and say what they look like. And there's a really brilliant take where Kirk starts like barking things at Spock for a communicator, and Spock just acts like he's a bit tired of him, treats him in an offhand way. It's really fun. And then we get a southern accent from McCoy coming out, where everyone's kind of relaxing. This episode is one of those ones where realistically it doesn't really work as a realistic thing, but as an allegory it really works well. I have trouble understanding why people wanted to leave at the end, frankly. It looked like a great place. It's has a great line also from Spock, which is, he finishes with, "For the first time in my life I was happy," which is kind of a bit sad, really. Then we get to 25. I'm getting tired of saying this. Another classic, Devil in the Dark. I mean, I don't think Taste of Paradise is a classic, but it's damn near. But Devil in the Dark is a classic. It's where Spock... It's the one where the stone creatures killing miners and Spock has to mind meld with it and understand its pain. Really well written, acted, good story. I've got a kind of an ecological background. I understand sort of animal life cycles, and it is ridiculous that some animal would have a 50,000 year life cycle. That's kind of ridiculous. You wouldn't get a decent evolutionary rate from that. Well, what is supposed to be a highly advanced species. Yeah. There's a sort of sad note to this. If you read, I've read Star Trek Memories. Shatner wrote about this episode because it means something to him. Because his father died during filming, and he was away for a little and came back. And pulled a horrible joke on Nimoy by asking him to act out the scene properly, where he has to mime out Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy was a bit reluctant because it meant so much investment of his acting energy, but Shatner insisted on it, and he started shouting out, "The pain, the pain!" And Shatner just shouted out, "Oh, for Christ's sake, will someone give this Vulcan an aspirin?" And cracked everyone up. But that's Shatner reacting, to his the death of his father. It must have been a pretty hard time for him. Great line from McCoy. In fact, there's a few great lines from McCoy. "I'm a doctor, Jim, not a bricklayer," he says. And he also says, once he cures the Horta with clay on his hands or concrete on his hands, he says, "I'm beginning to think I can cure a rainy day," he says, which is pretty funny. I kind of like that. McCoy does crack out some good ones with this. And it was kind of cool that we saw a really alien species here. It wasn't just a monster of the week. It kind of was at the beginning, but it turned out it wasn't a monster. It was just it was the good guy in its own story. And I think the humans came to appreciate that's exactly what it was. And that's kind of a nice, sophisticated look at things. Episode 26 is Erin and Mercy, first encounter with the Klingons. And this was a bit dull. It meandered all over the place. It was kind of nice to see the Klingons, and it was Michael Kalikos, I think his name is. Oh, sorry, John Kalikos, playing the head of the Klingons. He went on to play Baltar in the original Battlestar Galactica, so he's got a big sci-fi pedigree here. He was pretty good, and some of the dialogue between them, but the planet they were on, the people were a bit dull. Yeah. So Kalikos is here, Commander Core, pitting his wits against Kirk, relishing the battle. In this, they're not past the Cornish pasty-headed Klingons. They're the human kind of Klingons, which gets explained later on in the history of Star Trek and why the Klingons look like humans during this period, rather than just ignoring the problem. I liked it. It was. I liked Core's final line where he says something like, "It's a shame we didn't meet in battle. It would have been glorious," to Kirk. And the actual one other thing I like is the head of the peasant society, whatever they were, actually said the humans and Klingons would become allies in future, which did turn out to be the case. It was kind of cool. This one was alright. It was a decent episode. It wasn't the greatest, but it was decent enough. Funnily enough, he apparently reprised the role of Core in Deep Space Nine. So he was, and he had a modern look to him. So I don't know how to explain that, but there you go. I think Core also appeared in the animated series too. Okay, that brings us to episode 27, the alternative factor. Right, this is the only real woofer in this season, in my opinion. It was pretty poor. It was awful. It was about a guy with a funny beard. I mean, the beard just drove me nuts for a start. Who had like a parallel that he involved in time experiments, and he coexisted in a paradigm dimension, or there was an alternative of him, and they had to fight, and their existence and they're crossing the time streams or space streams or whatever was basically threatening the time in the universe. And the Disney one was with Kirk. He had to lock them together, fighting it through infinity. Man, was it a boring episode. It was lots of bombastic music and trying to heighten the tension to make it like it could be the end of the galaxy, but it was just a badly written and poorly drawn out episode. I really, really didn't like this one. This is the only one I've seen of the 20 was it 7 or whatever it is so far, that I think is actually terrible. The rest of them, at the very least, are decent, and I'd say 10 of them so far are probably classics. I'll try and run through that list at the end, because I've got a note on it, but oh man, it was bad. Right, okay, that brings us on to 20. Right, we go from a low here to a absolute high, which is sitting at the edge of forever. Classic episode, riffed on by Futurama among others, where Kirk and Spock have to go back in time to the 1930s to try and intercept deranged McCoy, who's also gone back in time, and they find out that if they don't go back, time has been altered and the starship isn't above them in the sky. So something about what McCoy does has affected Earth history significantly. Turns out it's Joan Collins as a peacenik, trying to stop fight war, bearing arms, fighting foreign troops, Nazis. In fact, she basically, if she lives, she talks America out and to not join the wars, and the planet falls to the Nazis. So it's high stakes. Wow, there's some great writing in this. Now, I was quite disappointed. I thought Harlan Ellison was entirely responsible for this, but apparently he had lots of ideas they didn't like drug dealing members of crew and stuff like this. So there was extensive rewrites, but the core of the story is really fantastic. This is a brilliant episode. Best one so far, easily. Great script, great pacing, great drama, love story. It's all really tight and well written, put together, really like clockwork, really terrific. The only downside to it for me was I didn't think Joan Collins was all that. She was alright. She didn't derail it for certainly. And I'd say not only is the best Star Trek episode I've ever seen, I think it may well be the best best episode of the original series, but it might be the best one ever. And I'd say it's definitely a top 10 TV episode of all time. It's that good. Really terrific episode. And then finally we get the last one of the series, which is it's called Operation Annihilate. It's about these weird giant amoeba alien things swarming over planets and driving people mad and all this, that and the other. This was alright. It wasn't great, but it was good. We get Spock being attached. The best bit in it, actually, is Spock having one of these things attached to him, and basically they cause massive pain to force you to do what they want, and they're trying to do it on Spock, but his power of his mind is holding him back, but only for so long. They finally figure out how to kill the beasties, apply it to Spock in a kind of I think it's a bit cheap shot. It didn't feel completely organic to the story. He's blinded, so everyone feels bad that he had to suffer something to try and cure. And it turns out they didn't have to do the thing they thought they had to do. They could remove some of the light spectrum of the fix, and it wouldn't have blinded him. But it turns out Vulcans have got this inner eye thing, protective inner eye, so he's all right. He's always recovered. Seems a bit unnecessary for the story, really. The rest of it was fine. It was filmed in some sort of business park that I thought worked reasonably well for the planet. The alien things looked a bit silly. They looked like fake vomit you get from joke shops. They looked a bit like that, frankly. But I rather enjoyed it. Overall, let me conclude. Overall, of this 29, I'd say only one was terrible, which is the alternative factor. Really terrible. The rest are pretty decent. Two classic. The decent ones I'm not going to talk about. I'd say there's only one that I can't quite put into classic, but it really is a step above decent, and that's This Side of Paradise, the one with Jill Island. I thought that was really good. I wouldn't quite call it a classic, but it's close. Of the rest of this series, I think the classics are in order of least classic to most classic, i.e. the best, worst to best. Of the classics, I'd say Space Seed is just about makes it because of the whole Wrath of Khan thing, really, just about. Charlie X I really liked. Taste of Armageddon I thought was good. Miri I really enjoyed. Miri, I think, there's something about Miri I really enjoy, but I wouldn't put it that high. Arena, the one with the fighting the Gorn. Devil in the Dark, we've talked about. Square of Gothos. The Enemy Within, where there's a good Kirk and a bad Kirk. And we're going up to the really good ones now. Balance of Terror, which is like the submarine commander kind of episode with Kirk and a Romulan. The Corbomite Maneuver, and that's number 3. Number 2 is The Naked Time, really great episode with Sulu sword fighting topless and all of that sort of stuff. And finally, the absolute best one of this season, City on the Edge of Forever. They really did well in this season. I mean, to have one clunker out of 29 and to have 12 what I would say classic episodes out of 29, that is really hitting it out of the park. Thoroughly recommend this first season. It's one of the great TV seasons of all time. Okay, that's about it. I hope I inspire a couple of you to get around to watching season 1. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. It's also on Love Film, so there's no real reason to not watch it. In fact, it's on HD on Love Film in the UK, so it really looks nice, and it's the remaster ones too. So I'd recommend watching this if you can. Bye.